Here we go. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Any prayer requests this morning? Yes, Miss Tracy. She can get to feeling better for sure. I put still all those are affected by the earthquake in Venezuela with Rafa's family and stuff there. Just I haven't heard an update on it since then, but I know a lot of people died and a lot of people are going to be dealing with that kind of stuff for quite a bit. So, especially Rafa's family. All right, we're going to get started with a prayer, and then we'll get into our class. Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to be here. We thank you for giving us your word. We pray now that as we go to your word, that we can do so with the right mindset, that we can do so in submission to it, with respect to what it is, and with understanding that every bit of wisdom that you provide to us is so much better than the wisdom that we could come up with or the wisdom of the world around us. God, we want to pray for Miss Tracy, that she can get to feeling better. We know that she's a little under the weather right now, so we just ask that you bring her healing and comfort and relief as quickly as possible so that she can get back on her feet and do all the things that she wants to do. We also pray that you can be with all of those that were affected by the earthquake in Venezuela, especially Rafa's family. We just ask that you be close to them, that you comfort so many as they're dealing with loss of people that they know and love, and also just deal with people that are going forward now, looking for new jobs, looking for new homes, and just all of the different ways that their lives have been affected. God, we just ask that you be close to all of those people. God, we thank you so much for being a God that hears our prayers, a God that loves us, a God that looks after us, not in a faraway way, but in an intimate way and in a close way. God, we thank you so much for Jesus. We thank you for the sacrifice that he made for our sins. It's in his name we pray. Amen. All right, we are in Proverbs chapter 4, still in the section of the book where he's really talking a lot about the value and importance of wisdom and how it affects all the different aspects of your life. So we're not quite to the just kind of rapid fire proverb after proverb section yet, but we're still in, there's still many proverbs that are worked in here and a lot of different things that he talks about, but they're more in chunks rather than just the short statements that we'll get later in the book. We'll start in chapter 4, verse 20. If somebody would, read Proverbs 4, 20 through 27, please. Awesome, thank you. So he starts off again, my son. It's kind of, you can feel the intimacy with which he writes, the care that he has. It's not just directed to general followers, but my son, please pay attention to my words. Turn your ear to my sayings. Don't let them depart from your sight. Keep them in the midst of your heart, as he said throughout the book many times. He says they are life to those who find them and health or healing to all their body. I don't want you to just pay attention to what I have to say because I'm bored or I'm so smart or anything, but because I want you to find the healing and the life that comes from these words, and these words that he received from his father and obviously from God as well. And then he gives a section of things that we should watch over or things that we should keep a close eye to. It's one of my favorite sections in Proverbs. He says, guard your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. So he says, protect your heart, guard your heart with care, look after your heart, because from it flow the springs of life. What does he mean when he says, out of your heart flows the springs of life? What's he talking about? because he's not talking about your veins, right, pumping blood. What's he talking about when he says these springs of life come flowing out from your heart? What was that? Compassion should be something that flows from our heart for sure. Right. Everything you do flows from it. Absolutely. Every path of your life, every spring of your life, you can think of as kind of escaping from your heart, right? Jesus says, out of the hearts of men come wicked thoughts, evils, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, all those different things. That those things escape out of our hearts, right? So if I were to go and do something really wicked, it didn't start in my hands, right? It didn't start in that moment. It started way back when I was cherishing those things in my heart, right? If I'm going to go talk bad about someone behind their back, that doesn't start in my lips. That starts in my mind. That starts with something I say in my head, and then it escapes to my lips. I talked about this a lot, the thing that used to be on Nana's bathroom, and now it's in my house. It's just a poem, and it says, be careful of your thoughts, for your thoughts become your words. Be careful of your words, for your words become your actions. Be careful of your actions, for your actions become your habits. Be careful of your habits, for your habits become your character. And be careful of your character, because your character becomes your destiny. And I always liked it because it shows the progression of something that you just think in your head to the things that you do, the type of person you are, and ultimately your destiny, right? And it doesn't start in my hands. It doesn't start in my actions. It actually starts way back in my mind and in my heart with where I start there. So many times people have this idea, well, if I'm just thinking it, there's no issue, right? If I'm just thinking something in my head, it's fine. If I'm just, I would never say that or I would never do that. I'm just thinking about it. And Jesus kind of addressed that kind of mentality in his Sermon on the Mount. He said, you've heard it said, do not commit murder. But I tell you, whoever hates his brother has committed murder in his heart. So Jesus goes beyond just the physical, observable action and says, no, I want what's inside. Even before we get to the murder, I want what's inside the heart. With adultery, they're saying, hey, look, you don't commit adultery, but I can look, or I can window shop all I want, And Jesus says, if you even look at a woman with lustful intent, you've committed adultery in your heart with her. So those things that Jesus was saying weren't absent from the Old Testament. They just weren't practiced by the Pharisees, because you see even here in the Old Testament that God wants them to be focused on what's in the heart first, and every aspect of their life is going to flow out from that. If they cherish God in their heart, it's going to flow out into what kind of husband they are, what kind of father, what kind of employee, what kind of citizen. It's going to flow into all those different springs of life, all those different avenues of life. And if the opposite is true, if they cherish wickedness in their heart, if they cherish themselves, well, then their actions are going to reflect that. So many times we focus on the symptoms to our problems instead of the cause of our problems, right? I was sleeping with a pillow that was too big, had a headache, kept getting a headache, and what would I do when I had a headache? Take medicine, right? I'm just treating the symptoms, but the headaches aren't going away because the pillow I'm sleeping on is too big. If I change the pillow, well, now I've actually addressed the root of the problems, the core of the problems, and I'm not just treating symptoms. So many times we focus on one specific sin or one specific action that we're struggling with, and we neglect the core of those issues, which is our heart in the first place. So God wants us to be focused not just on treating symptoms as they appear, but focusing on the core of the problem, which is the heart. And if you take care of the core, if you take care of the cause of the problem, the rest is going to take care of itself. So God, even in the Old Testament, I just think this is really cool because it shows that while the people of the Old Testament thought works, as long as I do the right thing and make the right sacrifice, everything's okay, that's what they thought. That's not what God was teaching them. Even here, he wanted them to focus on what was on the inside, and they didn't practice that, and Jesus came and showed them the truth of that, but it was communicated to them previously, and I think it's a really cool passage. Any comments or questions on that so far?
I know that the word flow does not exist in the translation.
Right.
That's added in.
Right.
But it does.
Comes from spring.
Yeah,
Right.
That in this moment, that path that you have has two ends.
Right.
You're
Right.
going to find life worth living, or you're going to find life that is just the death of you.
Right.
And so that's important for us to go like, look, don't make hasty decisions.
Right.
Don't go into this without, giving thought to what's the possibilities of, should I speak up or should I keep my mouth shut?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Verse 24, put away from you a deceitful mouth and put devious speech far from you. It kind of fits the progression you see before too. Focus on what's inside, but don't even talk about this stuff, right? Don't be devious in your speech. Don't be deceitful in your speech. So many times, if you don't talk about something, you're not going to end up doing it. What's that phrase? Affairs don't start in bedrooms, they start in conversations, right? If I say I'm never going to think about it, right? I don't even entertain those thoughts. I might slip up and say something. I might slip up and talk about it. But if I'm embracing even talking in a negative way, in a deceitful way, and in a lying way, well, if I'm embracing it in my tongue, I'm even closer to embracing it in my hands and in my actions. So guard it in your mind, but also guard it in your tongue that I'm not going to talk about it this way. And so many times people will plot evil things verbally or say that they'll do things, and then they'll say, I was just talking. I would never actually do that. I was just talking. Well, there's power in talking about it because it gets you even closer to the step of actually doing the thing you don't want to do. I was just flirting. Well, that puts you even closer to doing the thing that you don't want to do. So don't think about it, but certainly don't talk about it, and keep yourself away from these places. Along with this too, nobody likes being lied to, right? Devious, deceitful speech. Even liars don't like being lied to. It's kind of like that phrase, even hypocrites don't like hypocrisy. Previously, he said, bind truth and grace around your neck. Truth and kindness around your neck, and you'll find grace with all people, right? So everybody loves truth. Everybody hates deceitful speech. You don't have to be a Christian to hate being deceived and all those types of things. It's something that all of us are kind of nauseated by, even when we do it ourselves. And he says, let your eyes look directly ahead and let your gaze be fixed straight in front of you. Watch the path of your feet, and all your ways will be established. Do not turn to the right nor to the left. Turn your foot from evil. He says, look directly ahead. So I kind of like the way he's describing it as guard your heart, watch your mouth, and fix your eyes, right? Keep yourself focused on what's set before you. When we're not focused on the task that's set before us, when we're not focused on the things that we're supposed to do, we create an opportunity for temptation. We create an opportunity for sin. It's not from the Bible, but idle hands are the devil's workshop, right? So many times, even though that's not stated in the Bible, we can see it in the Bible. David and Bathsheba, for example, he should have been at war. He should have been with his men, but he's sitting idly on the rooftops. While everyone else is doing what they're supposed to do, he's kind of chilling. And he created an opportunity in his laziness, in his lack of focus to the things that he should have been tending to, for sin and temptation. And Satan used that as an opportunity to find a foothold in his life. Another phrase that people say all the time, stand for something or you'll fall for anything. And this is another way that the Bible says these things, and we kind of restate the same truths over and over and over again in different ways and find different ways to word them. But that's exactly what he's saying. Be focused. Look ahead of you. Don't get distracted. Don't turn to the right. Don't turn to the left. Don't focus on these other things. Keep focused on the task that's set before you. And if you do that, you're going to be much more successful than if you chase every path that looks appealing at different points. And everywhere you go, do not turn the right to the left. Do not turn to the right nor to the left. Turn your foot from evil. It's one of those things that's self-explanatory, but it's difficult to practice. It's a lot easier to say turn your foot from evil than to actually turn your foot from evil. But if you do, you will be blessed in the way that Solomon is saying. Any comments or questions on this section?
I like the word established.
Right.
always behave, because there's the integrity that comes with that is by doing, by keeping focus on what you're doing.
Right.
Not allowing yourself to deviate. So
Right.
I like that word, establish.
Yeah.
It's something we need to.
Like security, trustworthiness. Yeah.
We need that in our lives.
Yeah.
Not just for ourselves, but for our friends, for our family, for our community. We need steadfastness in not what we believe, but the actions of what we believe.
Right, right. That's something too. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that you see repeated throughout Proverbs, is kind of the portrayal of the righteous as secure, as like planted like a good tree with strong roots, and then the wicked by comparison are always changing, always shifting, not trustworthy, deceptive, moving around, and not secure. So yeah, absolutely. This idea of being established and trustworthy and firm is something, it's hard to find in the world. And I think it's something we probably all want for ourselves. And Solomon's saying, this is how you can achieve it, right? Because we all want security. Even the way people describe their finances, I want financial security. Like I want to be comfortable and secure and all those things. So yeah, absolutely. All right, chapter 5, Proverbs chapter 5. My son, give attention to my wisdom, incline your ear to my understanding, that you may observe discretion and your lips may reserve knowledge. For the lips of an adulteress drip honey, and smoother than oil is her speech. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, her steps take hold of Sheol. She does not ponder the path of life. Her ways are unstable. She does not know it. Chapter 5 is kind of all about this. I shouldn't say all about, but primarily about romantic encounters. Maybe romantic's the wrong word. But this kind of physical encounters and staying away from the adulteress and the consequences of doing so. You could think about it from Solomon's perspective, all the different types of advice that you give your children. A father gives his children, he gives them financial advice, he gives them spiritual advice, he gives them romantic advice, and sometimes there's a lot of overlap between those things. Sometimes good spiritual advice is also good romantic advice, and vice versa. So in this chapter, he deals a lot with this specific woman, but there's so much overlap into just spiritual truths too as well, to where, the way any father, sometimes the advice that you give that's good for relationships and things like that is also advice that's just good in every aspect of your life. For example, lying is bad spiritually, but it also makes every relationship harder, right? When there's dishonesty and there's a lack of trust between two people, it's really hard to have a good relationship. So sometimes there's overlap between these types of advice, and Solomon's really good at giving both of those things at once, and it's a good example for us as well. She sounds great. So the lips of an adulteress drip honey, and smoother than oil is her speech. So it sounds good, right? Honey's sweet, good, smoother than oil. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood, and she's sharp as a two-edged sword. Wormwood was an extremely bitter plant that they used in some medicines, but it's known for its bitterness. In Revelation 8, we looked at when a third of the waters became wormwood in our Revelation class. You guys remember it's a punishment. It's a plague that God is sending to show his disdain with Rome and all of that stuff. But he punishes, and it's not quite death yet, not in the way when he completely turns it to death later, but it's a punishment. It's bitter. It's showing God's disdain. And that's kind of the idea of what he's saying right here, is that it starts off sweet, it seems nice, but it ends in bitterness, and it's sharp as a two-edged sword. So while it seemed good at first, it seemed attractive, it led to a very painful situation. And it kind of describes a lot of these situations. I'm going to pick on the Patriots coach again, Mike Vrabel, just because I feel like I can as a Patriots fan, but man, I'm sure when he was having, just a public figure, when he was having his affair and everything, I'm sure he wasn't thinking about all the consequences in his life that he's dealing with now. I'm sure when he was pursuing that interaction, he wasn't thinking about the news cycles talking about him. I'm sure he wasn't thinking about all the marriage counseling that he was going to have to go to. I'm sure he wasn't thinking about having to miss work, and all of these negative things and questions and all of this drama and catastrophe that comes. I'm sure that's not why he did what he did. It seemed fun. It seemed good. It seemed sweet. And it may have been for a moment, but in the end, it's bitter and it hurts. And so many times that's exactly what sin is, which is why this is not just good advice for this specific sin, but for all sins. It seems good. It seems sweet. It seems attractive. It seems like it's going to be fun, but it leads to bitterness and pain. And if you want to avoid the bitterness and the pain, stay away from the appealingness of the sweetness at the beginning. You could kind of say this in English terms. There's such a bad aftertaste, right? You ever have a sip of something and the first sip is good, and then the aftertaste, you just can't get it out of your mouth. You're like, this is disgusting. That's how I feel about like every diet drink. Like the first sip's good, that aftertaste just gets me. And that's kind of what he's talking about. Like it seemed good, and for a second it might have been, but man, that aftertaste gets you, and it really hurts you. Well. Called what? Absinthe?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Okay.
It was banned in the United States for 70 years.
Okay.
Because it's made from wormwood.
Interesting.
Right? And what they
I didn't know that.
banned it was because the way they would cook it, if you start drinking it, you hallucinate. And they call it danger with green berry. Right?
Okay.
So it's really popular in Europe.
Okay.
This is a drug that they
Right.
And it's made from wormwood. Now, I don't know if these two are related or not.
Right.
But I look at that like, so the same scenario is, hey, this is going to be fun.
Right.
You're going to enjoy this. The problem is, once you start hallucinating, you lose your ability to make controlled decisions.
Right.
And I'm like, I wonder if that's not that. If that's saying that, hey, look, you know what? I know you like to drink, and I know that a good time seems to come with it, but you are on a path of destruction.
Right.
And you don't even know it yet. It's just you're enticed into it. But they've allowed it back into the United States, so they got it to where it doesn't make you hallucinate. But if you watch some of these TikTok videos, there's two old boys in a car wash in Las Vegas, both have a bottle of it, and they're oblivious to the fellas. You're sitting in a car wash, and I'm like, it's just crazy. It's crazy.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Interesting.
Want to look that up?
Yeah, I want to. Not look it up to purchase, but look it up to see what the.
I'm not innocent here.
Just for clarity.
I know for a reason.
No, that's really interesting. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it starts off sweet, starts off appealing, and then leads to this painful end. Her feet go down to death. Her steps take hold of Sheol. It leads to death. And that's not what you're thinking when you're going to her company, right? You're not thinking, oh, I'm marching to death. And with so many sins and so many things that we chase after, if you think about it from the way God thinks about it, and why God hates them so much, and why God warns us to stay away from them and takes it so seriously, is because he doesn't want us marching towards death. He doesn't want us walking towards something that's going to cause us to perish. And if you love someone, even though they're having a great time, you're not going to let them march towards those things. Just like your kid. If the kid really, really, really wants to run and play in the street, and it looks so fun, if you love that kid, you're going to grab them and get on to them and tell them, don't you dare do that, because you don't want them to get hurt. And the same thing is happening with Solomon. He's not trying to be the fun police, as so many people accuse God of being all the time. He's trying to protect his kids and protect his listeners from marching towards death, from marching towards things that are going to ruin them and cause them to perish. Verse 6, I think, is really interesting. She does not ponder the path of life. Her ways are unstable. She does not know it. Kind of back to what you were talking about with them being established. She's the opposite, right? Her ways are unstable. She's not established. She's very shaky, right? She does not ponder. She doesn't consider. She doesn't think about the path of life. She doesn't know it. She doesn't concern herself with what's a healthy, meaningful, safe lifestyle. That's not where her headspace is. What she's concerned with is what feels good, what makes me happy, what do I want to do, right? All of the things that we're tempted to allow to cause or allow to direct our decision making. But if you're a righteous person, or if you're a wise person, as Solomon's saying, you are going to consider the path of life. You're going to consider the consequences of these actions. And sometimes, for me, it's not just, I wish that it was enough to say, God doesn't want you to do this, don't do it. And sometimes that's enough. But sometimes what prevents me from doing evil is thinking about the consequences of those actions. And Solomon is trying to get them to think, obviously you don't want to do it because God says it's wrong. And that should be enough for all of us. But sometimes we're stubborn, and what we need is to be shown this is the consequences of these actions. If you don't listen to God and you disobey him, not only do you cause an issue with him relationally, there's also going to be these serious consequences that are played out in your life, ultimately resulting in death. But she doesn't think about it. And she wants her partners not to think about it either. She wants them to engage in the same kind of mindless pursuit of the immediate pursuit of pleasure at the neglect of the long term. Okay. Any comments or questions? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Either one of you. Yeah, right. Right. It's kind of funny because he says, it's better to live on the corner of a roof than in a house with a quarrelsome wife. And it's like, I guess he would know because he had so many. But that's kind of the nature of wisdom too. And I think just from that statement, you learn a lot about Solomon's perspective. Sometimes your parents give you advice not to do things that they've done and learned the hard way, that this wasn't good, right? And sometimes kids make the unfortunate mistake of saying, well, you did it, I can do it, right? Who are you to tell me I can't do that? And a foolish person would look at Solomon and say, I'm not listening to you talking about being faithful to your wife. I'm not listening to you talking about any of that because you had 700 wives, and all this stuff. But a wise person would say, okay, he learned from that. That's not good. He knows it's not good. And I want to learn from his mistakes so that I don't have to learn from my own. And again, kind of what Solomon said over and over again, there's an easy way and a hard way to learn. You can learn not to touch the stove by listening to dad say not touch the stove, or you can learn by touching the stove. Well, when it comes to women, Solomon touched the stove, and Solomon learned the hard way about the negative consequences of that. But his sons and those who read his words don't have to make the same mistakes. But sometimes we just want to justify it, so we're like, you're not, I'm not listening to you because you did X, Y, or Z. But
algorithm. So if you're watching YouTube, TikTok.
yeah,
If you watch gospel singing, then
yeah,
you're
right.
a lot of those.
It feeds your interest.
And then occasionally they'll slip in something different. And if you let yourself get down that path, it takes you so much completely where you don't belong. And so it develops what you're, it's trying to read what you're looking for and provide you with that experience.
Right.
Same thing with this. It said, I'm going to provide you with an algorithm that says, that's not good, don't go that way. Stay with this proven path and keep focused that way. It's like an algorithm.
Yeah.
It's a mindset. It's looking for the right path.
Right. Even Jesus said that. He said, pay careful what you listen to because more will be given to you of that. So if I go listen to the wrong things, I'm going to be continuously fed those things. If I chase out the right things, I'm going to be continuously fed those things as well. You're absolutely right that God set it up in a way that, the path that you chase after is the path that you're going to get more of. And yeah, I remember when you say algorithm, it kind of reminded me, I don't remember which politician it was, but when they were talking about whether or not they were going to ban TikTok in America, there was some politician who said, we can't have TikTok because every time I go on TikTok, it's just a bunch of girls that are barely dressed dancing. And everybody said, well, There's a reason your TikTok's showing that, sir. It's because the algorithm feeds your interests. And you keep watching those videos, and it keeps showing you those videos. Mine's filled with all kinds of different stuff, and yours might be filled with mechanic stuff, and mine's Patriot stuff, and all kinds of stuff because it feeds your interest. And he didn't realize he was kind of telling on himself. But everyone that knew how the algorithm worked was like, okay, well, that tells me everything I need to know. But it's so true that so many times life is like that. If you chase out these wicked things and you chase out those types of things, there is a supply of them, and you're going to continuously be fed those things. But there's also a never-ending supply of righteousness, which is why Jesus says hunger and thirst for righteousness, because God's going to give you more and more and more. The more you'll take, the more he'll give you. But sometimes that's not what we're hungry for, and I'm hungry for something else instead.
Well, I noticed one of those algorithms that if it feeds me a clip that I don't want, the worst thing you can do is watch it through.
Yes, right.
Click off of it, go back to wherever you were, go to something different.
Right.
And then it starts eliminating that
right.
from your feed line.
Right.
So the more we allow ourselves to consider that these are possibilities, the more that possibility will become a mindset you will develop. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, if you're really tech savvy, you can hold down and say not interested. And that's something that we can do in our lives too, is say, you know what? Don't want any of that. I'm staying away from there. So yeah, you can hold it down and say not interested, and it'll show you less content like that. So yeah, anyways, yeah. Who knew this was going to be a how to use TikTok class? So didn't expect that one.
Don't ever walk away, because it'll click on something, it'll be there, and it'll replay it.
Yes.
While you're over here.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I made that mistake one time. It was this guy cleaning his toilet in a unique way. And I walked away to do something, and I came back, I was like, oh, I accidentally left it going, and turned it off. The next time I got on there, it was toilet video after toilet video. I was like, I don't like that. Stop showing me it. But that's right. It feeds the algorithm. It feeds whatever it thinks you like. So, and that's kind of how Satan is. He doesn't tempt all of us in the same way. And, he's not, it's kind of like a good fisherman, like they say. He's not going to use the same bait for every fish. He's going to figure out the things that you like and the things that you're attracted to. And if you demonstrate, I'm really attracted to this, I really like this, and that you're going to bite, well, they're going to keep using those things to reach you, if that makes sense. Okay, verses 7 through 14. Now then, my sons, listen to me and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Keep your way far from her, and do not go near the door of her house, or you will give your vigor to others and your years to the cruel one. And strangers will be filled with your strength, and your hard-earned goods will go to the house of an alien. And you groan at your final end, when your flesh and your body are consumed. And you say, how I have hated instruction, and my heart spurned reproof. I have not listened to the voice of my teachers, nor inclined my ear to my instructors. I was almost in utter ruin in the midst of the assembly and the congregation. Okay, starting at the beginning. Where does he tell him to stay away from? Do not go near what? Yeah, he says don't even go near her door. Well, why shouldn't you go to her door? Nothing's going to happen at the door. Yep. Door leads to the hallway. Hallway leads to the bedroom, right? Don't go to the entrance of places that you don't want to go inside of. Don't go near them. Stay away, right? The best way to make sure I don't end up in the bedroom is make sure I never make it to the front door, right? Just stay away. Stay back as far as you can. Today, there would be different versions of this. Maybe he would say, don't even follow her on Instagram, right? Don't even send that Facebook friend request or whatever it is. Don't chase out those first initial steps, because that's just opening the door for those other steps, right? And you're putting yourself one step closer to that place that you don't want to go. And it seems harmless enough, right? It seems harmless initially. I'm at her door. I'm just at the door. It seems harmless. But if you're really worried about going to that place, and there's a possibility of that, don't even go to the door. Stay back as far as you can. And I think all sins are this way to some extent. There's always an entrance point. And I think it's interesting, we always talk about God says that no temptation has been given to us that we can't overcome, but there's always a way of escape provided. And sometimes we're looking for the way of escape, or we're in the midst of a bad situation, and we say, well, where was the way of escape? Because now I'm here, and I'm in this really, really bad situation, and I'm in the bedroom, or I'm wherever I'm not supposed to be, and the temptation is so much. And it's like, how many exit ramps were you given before you got to that moment that you said no? How many chances were you given to escape before you got to that moment? And maybe now that you're at this moment, you can't conceive of a possible way that you could have overcome this temptation, but there was so many opportunities before you got to that point, before you went inside her door, before you went inside the bedroom. And there's all of these ways of escape that God is constantly giving us, and we say no, 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 no. And then when we get to the very act itself, we're like, the temptation was so strong. And it's like, there was easier ways to get out of this that we passed by. I'm talking to myself too, because I do this all the time, and I'm like, man, I didn't have to do that. Like, there were so many chances for me to stop and think about what I was doing and go a different direction, but I buried my head in the sand and kept going forward because I wanted to. And then I'm like, oh man, the temptation's so strong, So yeah, go ahead. Oh yeah. Yeah. With I think it's with the flood coming up, and he sends him the boats and the helicopters. Yeah. Where was he? Yeah, he's like, I sent you 2 boats and a helicopter. Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me a little bit too of I think it's frogs that you can put them in water, and if you put them in boiling water, they'll jump out. But if you put them in and you just turn the heat up, they'll stay, right? Well, so many times that's what we're doing with sin. We wouldn't jump straight into boiling water. I wouldn't run straight into the bedroom, but I'll start at the door and then the hallway, and I'll come inside just for a minute, or with whatever sin it is, and we entertain it little by little by little, and the water's getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and then before you know it, it's boiling, and you're at a place you never thought you were even going to end up in. But it seemed okay at first. It seemed so safe at first. It seemed fine. And it just gradually brought you to a place you didn't want to go.
It always gives us a way out.
Always. Yeah, absolutely.
What's that, the boy falls off the cliff, grabs a tree limb on his way down, and starts screaming for help. Somebody save me. Nobody finally hears this voice. Let go. I got you. He said, what? He said, let go. I got you. He said, who is this? He said, it's God. He said, is there anybody else out there?
That's funny. Did I see a hand back there? Did you have a hand up?
Well, I feel like for me personally, there's something to be said about if I'm willing to go to the door, I'm probably willing to be more than that too. I don't even go anywhere near things that I'm truly genuinely scared of. But I do this all the time. I tell myself I'm not gonna go to the store, I'm not gonna buy anything. I don't need to spend any more money. But then I go and I look, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna do it. If I'm willing to go in there and look around, I get closer and I'm more willing to do further things. So I feel like that's what it's good. Guard your heart and all. Don't even do it a little bit. And if you're willing to go to the first step, you're probably willing to do it.
It's only $20. I mean, I can afford $20.
That's a good.
I was willing to spend my money the whole entire time. I told myself that I wasn't, and I was just gonna look.
Right.
But I did it anyway. And then I'm like, well, I ended up before I got out of the car, I would have done it. I should have just not gone here.
That's a good point.
How come I don't have the money for my rent?
Yeah, right. No, that's a good point, because I don't go to stores that I have no interest in shopping at. You're not going to find me for myself at Bath and Body Works, or Hobby Lobby, the way someone else might be. But if I go to a store like the Patriots shop, I might be like, well, I'll go look. It's too expensive. I'm not going to buy anything. But the whole reason I even want to look is because I'm interested. So if I'm even desiring to go to the door, there's a reason. And I should be mindful of that reason and try to stay away from that reason, because I'm not tempted to buy things I don't even want to buy. So.
You know, you ever got really famous as a preacher, just say, that always say, oh yeah, that's the guy that always talks about the Patriots.
Yeah. That's the guy. Right. No, that's really funny. Okay, we're almost done. But he says in verse 9, stay away from her. Don't go near the door of her house, or you will give your vigor to others and your years to the cruel one. Does anybody else say a word different than vigor? Dignity. That's a good one. Honor, right? You give your honor, your dignity, your pride even, all of those different things. And really what he's kind of describing here, if you look at all the things he's talking about with your vigor or honor, the years, the strength, the wealth, and the hard-earned goods, he's like, you're giving the best parts of your life to this. And that's not what you thought the cost of entry was at the door, right? You didn't think you were going to be sacrificing all of this to get that. And if you did, and you were thinking about it that way, is it worth this? Is it worth giving away so much of my life for? Probably not. Probably not. It's not a good trade. But like her, she doesn't ponder the paths of life. In that moment, you weren't thinking about it. You weren't thinking about the cost, right? There was this, I'm pretty lactose intolerant, but I pretend like I'm not. There was a blueberry pancake milkshake that they had at this ice cream place in Michigan. I love blueberries. I like pancakes. I love milkshakes, right? I was like, that sounds good. And I got that thing, and man, was it delicious. And I'm slurping it down. It was probably this tall, drank the whole thing so fast. And then I was on the toilet for like an hour thinking, why did I do this? Why did I do this? But when I was in line getting the milkshake, I wasn't thinking about the time that I was going to be spending, regretting that later. I was thinking about how tasty that is. Man, that sounds so good. That's what I want. I wasn't considering the consequences. And in these situations, to just stop and consider the consequences of your actions can eliminate so much temptation. When you say, this is what I'd be giving up to get that, I'm okay. I don't want to deal with that. But they do a good job sometimes, people who are tempting you and even ourselves, of putting those things out of your mind, not thinking about the consequences until you're faced with them. Some of this goes to legal penalties, your strength. You'll end up being basically a slave to others. Some say this refers to blackmail as well. There's obviously examples of that. Guys like Alexander Hamilton, even a little more recently than this time period, who were blackmailed and had to give up so much of their wealth because of affairs that they had and things like that. So there's the spiritual consequences, and there's lots of different ways that this can play out, but there's also just physical consequences for doing this. And one very real possibility, especially in their culture, if you go partake of this sin, what's going to happen to you if you're really caught? You're going to be killed, right? You're going to be killed. The best you could hope for is maybe slavery or somebody being merciful to you and giving you a different way out. But nothing good comes from pursuing this path. It all leads to pain. It all leads to destruction. In verses 11 through 14, he describes how you finally learn too late, right? It's always too late. The fool always recognizes later what's happened. He's like, man, how I've hated instruction. My heart spurned reproof. I've not listened to the voice of my teachers. So many times, I know in my life, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is, man, I wish I would have listened. I wish I would have listened to what they had to say. I wish I would have paid attention when they were telling me this. And they warned me, but I was too arrogant, and I was too confident in myself, and I didn't listen. And I just wish I would have listened. We all know it, but sometimes we're faced with those situations anyways. Okay, we're right at the end. We'll stop right here. We'll say a few things about it next week, but any comments or questions on anything we covered today? All right, thank you guys. We'll pick up next week at the end of that passage.